Okay, evening everybody. Welcome to the joint meeting of Scrutiny Committees. I think we're recording and now live on YouTube. So the first item on the agenda is going to be the appointment of the chairman for the meeting. So is there anyone that have a proposal for the chairman, please? Councillor Goldspink, who would you like to propose, please?
Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to propose Councillor John Wiley to chair this meeting. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And do I have a seconder? I can see Councillor Hollybon there. Great, thank you. And can I just have perhaps all members' hands up to the screen if they're happy with that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think that's carried. Thank you very much. Chairman, if you'd like to take charge from here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's joint scrutiny meeting. Item 2 is apologies. Before that, I think so, because there are members of the public here, first of all, hopefully watching, I should read out the following. The local authorities and police and crime panels coronavirus flexibility of local authority and police and crime panel meetings, England and Wales, regulations 2020, came into force on Saturday, the 4th of April 2020, to enable councils to hold remote committee meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic period. This was to ensure local authorities could conduct business during the current public health emergency. This joint meeting of scrutiny committees is being held remotely under these regulations via the Zoom application and is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. So now the next thing is, if we do apologies first, and then if we can go through a roll call, because again, there may be members of the public watching, so as they know who all the councillors are. So who has the apologies, Will?
Yeah, I have those. So we have apologies from councillors Huggins and Stevenson.
Thank you.
So I'll just go through a roll call. Chairman, do you want members to introduce themselves or just present?
I think if members are happy to just say that they're present, I think that the names are up there, so yeah.
Great, thank you. So do we have Councillor Angela Alder?
Present.
Councillor Sophie Bell?
Present.
Councillor Mary Brady? Yeah, I can see Councillor.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ruth Buckmaster?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Louis Court?
Present.
Councillor Alexander Curtis?
Present.
Councillor Ian Devonshire? No, okay. Councillor Holly Drake?
Present.
Councillor Rishi Fernando?
Present.
Councillor James Frecknell?
Present.
Councillor Miney Goldspink?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Diane Hollybon?
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Huggins. Councillor Jonathan Kay? No, thank you. Councillor Mark Pope?
Yes.
Councillor David Snowden?
Yep.
Had apologies from Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Tony Stowe?
Present.
Councillor Norma Simons? Councillor Simons, I think.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Councillor Alistair Ward Booth?
Present.
Councillor John Wiley, who we have obviously here present, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Under item 3, Chairman's announcements, I've only got a couple. If you would like to speak, if you can use the participants and just raise your blue hand, it will make it easier for me because there are quite a lot of people here, and it will save me flicking between screens. For those of you who are using the new Zoom, you will know that the voting buttons do seem to disappear quite quickly. So if we do come to, or when we do come to a vote, we probably will want you to raise your actual hand or say yes or no if you're not on camera, and then Democratic Services will be counting the votes. So hopefully that's clear. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have declarations? I can't see any hands raised, so I'll guess that the answer is no. And item 5, what we're all here for this evening, is the Budget 2021 and Medium Term Financial Plan 2021 to 2024. And I will hand over to, I think, Jeff Williamson, who will be taking us through this.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I'm pleased to present our budget report for your scrutiny, comments and review this evening. The report gives full details of our particular challenges this year and how we have sought to address them, but I would like to give some headlines. Just to recap, when we started last year to look at the budget and the MTFP, we knew we had targets to save of £1 million in the coming year, with a further 1 million in 22-23 and then a further 2 million in 23-24. The leadership team was tasked with coming up with a range of proposals for where these savings could be made, and from these emerged a set of preferred options for savings, which formed the basis of the report that went through audit and governance back in November. Among these proposed savings was the scheme for charging for garden waste collection, which was approved at Council last month. At the time, these proposals filled the gap for 21-22, though we were left with a 200k gap for 22-23 and a substantially larger one for 23-24, which we plan will be met through our forthcoming transformation programme. However, since then, circumstances have come about which have only added to our budget pressures. The first is that on the 25th of November, the government announced that PWLB borrowing would no longer be permissible if any part of our capital programme contains investment primarily for yield. Now, of course, we had recognised some years ago that times would get increasingly difficult, and we put a plan together which led us to develop our financial sustainability strategy, which has been focusing on returns from commercial property investment running alongside the revenue generated by Millstream. Therefore, we had in our budget additional income both from Millstream and from commercial property. But with the PWLB rule change, we've now had to take these items back out of the budget, meaning we've now had to find equivalent savings elsewhere. Then on top of this, of course, we've had further periods of lockdown thanks to COVID, and as our resulting losses are only partly covered by government grants, the impact on our finances this year are uncertain, as is the impact on our budget next year. However, the settlement for local authorities for 21-22 is a roll forward of that we had for the current year, which has meant that instead of just over £1 million in new homes bonus expected for this year, we will actually receive 2.2 million, which will go some way to help us manage these further money pressures. But as referenced in paragraph 2.12.3 of the report, what this situation does mean that we are not in a position any longer to make the automatic 25% top slicing of new homes bonus receipt to town and parish councils. But as explained in the report, what we are proposing instead is that towns and parishes can still request funding from us up to a level of what they would have received if they have particular community projects planned. They will need to demonstrate that all previous new homes bonus money paid to them has already been spent, and projects should align with their own corporate priorities. But in this way, the money can still be made available. The savings will come from the fact that a number of councils have unspent new homes bonus money, and not all will have schemes that they need to fund. Turning to council tax, for the last 3 years, we followed the government's expectations that we should build our core spending power by increasing council tax by the maximum allowed without a referendum. This for us is £5 on a Band D equivalent property, and we have applied the same for 21-22 and for the life of the MTFP. We've also reviewed our fees and charges as we do each year, and again applied an average 2.5% increase to reflect rises in our costs of delivery. So in conclusion, the papers in front of you have the details of all our budget proposals. The savings considered by Audit and Governance last year are included, and the other key elements of the report recommendations cover our £5 rise in council tax, our increase in fees and charges, and our capital programme. As a final point, if I may, I really must stress that even though this has without doubt been the most difficult budget for us to prepare so far, we have managed to do so without any real cuts to our frontline services. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I don't know if Stephen, Lynette, do you want to add anything to it, or are you happy with what's been said?
I have nothing to add at this point.
No problem. That's great. Thank you very much. In which case, over to members. I see Miney's hand, so Miney.
Thank you, Chairman. I thank you, Councillor Williamson, for your report. I do have one question. It's on page 22. It's related to 2.19.3. This says that the external auditor will need to look at the set-aside capital receipts, and he will make a judgment about the council's use of them, and that if he is not approving, that might affect our capital programme. Please, are you able to tell me when this external auditor is likely to look at the budget and at the accounts to make this assessment?
I will need to defer to Stephen, if I may, please, Chairman, on that.
Yeah, no problem, Stephen.
I had a communication with the external auditor this week, and they say that because of the backlog of audit opinions that have not yet been given, the earliest anticipated is sometime around the end of February, the start of March. I have pressed him again, but members should be aware that in Hertfordshire there are only 2 local authorities with an audit opinion on their 1920 accounts. We're one of them. Across the country, the vast majority of local authorities have not yet had audit opinions. The entire external audit business for local authorities is a bit of a mess. So they are extremely pressured, and obviously they're working as fast as they can go. But there's no levers that I have that I can make them do it any faster. So it'll be the end of February, start of March.
Okay, thank you. Happy with that, Miney?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is Mary. Mary Brady. Yeah, you're muted, Mary. You're still muted.
There we are. Right. Okay then. So how much is the external borrowing each year for the capital projects, please? And is all that external borrowing going to be from Public Works now?
That will be contained in the Appendix C, which is the capital programme, which is on page 39 on. And the borrowing is given over the up until 24 as being 58.6 million. And yes, that is all from PWLB, unless Stephen says to the contrary.
You're actually quoting the internal borrowing there, Councillor Williamson. The external borrowing for the PWLB is on the line below. So it'll come to
I do apologise. Yes, sorry.
1.3 million.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? Sorry, it was a bit muffled.
Yeah, you seem to be breaking. I don't know. It's not a very good connection, Stephen. You're sort of breaking up a little bit.
What Stephen was saying, in fact, I read the wrong line. I do apologise to members. The external borrowing is actually about just under 22 million.
And that's all from PWLB, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Mary?
Yes, but if we're not allowed to borrow from Public Works anymore, how are we going to continually fund these projects if we're going to borrow from Public Works to do so? Is there a deadline for stopping this borrowing?
No, these particular capital projects are not being classified as primarily for yield, and therefore the borrowing is still quite legitimate.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next one, Mark.
Thank you. A couple of minor points. On page 3 at the bottom, it talks about the sort of prospects for local government support, and in particular things like the fairer funding review and the review of business rates as a tax and its potential replacement. Have we got any idea when these things are likely to take place, or is it kind of still a bit uncertain?
As far as I know, it is still very uncertain. The fair funding review has been going on for 6 years, I think, at least. I don't think we've had any particular update.
Thank you. Could I ask another one, Chairman?
Yeah.
The next one's on page 6, and it's on para 2.7, and it's with regard to the business rates and the fact that we've had to increase the provision for bad debts. And I wonder if the officers could give us an idea what we've increased this to, and what sort of effect this is likely to have on our total bad debts provision.
Do you want to have a stab at that, Stephen?
I'll have to look that up. All right, if you give me a couple of minutes to look that one up, I can tell you what we've done.
Sure.
All right, Chairman. Yes.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah. One more, and then you have to come back later. But one more.
Thank you. So they're all fairly quickie ones, I think. This one's on page 7, and it's para 2.8, and it refers about 5 or 6 lines down. It talks about that the resulting credit will flow through the sharing system. And I wonder if officers could just to explain what the sharing system is.
I think Stephen's looking at trying to find your previous answer.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I don't know, Jeff, do you know what the sharing system is? Or if not, we'll come back to it.
I think you're going to have to come back to Stephen on that, please, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Tony, is this a question that Jeff can answer rather than overloading Stephen with?
I'm sure he can. It's just really a very, very easy one, really. It's on page 16, 215.3. It talks about the percentage on empty homes on the tax, council tax. And I just wondered if we consider bringing that in, would we have anything in place? Because it will encourage developers of long-term developments to actually demolish all the houses, the old ones he wants to get rid of, and rather than paying increased tax on them. So you'd need, that's what developers do. They knock the houses down and have an empty site. So have we got any thoughts about that? How we stop that happening?
Okay.
It's 215.3. Have I got that right, Tony? So about
yeah, 215.3. You've got it.
So you're looking at the empty homes premiums.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's a policy which is reviewed by Overview and Scrutiny, I think, every year. So it will come round again. I mean, we set the our scheme 2 years ago. I think it was reviewed again last year, and we agreed no change. But there's always the opportunity to change it this coming year. There are criteria the government have set down to a framework, if you like, that we have to work within, and we've applied our own view as to how we feel some of these criteria should be applied. And I think last time Overview and Scrutiny looked at it, the recommendation was no change. But as I say, that can be looked at again in the future. But that wouldn't be really anything that we would bring in for the budget this time round. Okay. It might apply to the budget in future years.
Well, it wasn't the rate of the tax, the concern. My concern was if we brought the higher rates in for long-term empty houses, it would just encourage contractors or developers to knock the houses down and leave the site empty. So whether we thought about that at the same time.
Well, these are generally properties that are second homes, or which have just been unoccupied for a period of time. I don't think they necessarily apply to developments that are unsold.
It could do, but I didn't realise. That's okay. Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, are you ready to answer Mark's question?
Yes, bad debt provision we've increased by £1,034,022, which is a reflection of our estimate of where we are on collection in year. and the difficulties around that. And we've increased the appeals provision by 3.4 million, which is on the assumption of a 25% reduction in rateable value for a material change in circumstance appeal on the RVs to the Valuation Office Agency. And we've also applied that same 25% to retail, leisure and entertainment venues in the district, which comes to that 3.4 million. So the total at the end of it is a deficit on the collection fund of 18 million. Now, non-domestic rates are shared, 50% to the government, 40% to the district council, and 10% to the county council. And the 18 million is subject to government grant for losses in the year. So the net result after feeding through the shares of the 50, 40, 10, and we will receive 4.6 million in irrecoverable loss grant from the government. We're due to make a payment each year for the next 3 years because we're being allowed to spread it for the first time. Usually deficits are recovered in the next financial year. We're allowed to spread it for 3 years. So it's a payment of 900,000 over the next 3 years. If those provisions are not needed, then they'll be released back into the collection fund as credit, and they could offset the 900, but we would still have that 4.6 million in irrecoverable loss grant.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was your other question, Mark?
It was about the sharing system.
The
Yeah,
sharing.
the shares are 50% to the government, 40% to us, 10% to the county council.
Right.
I understand. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. On page 23 in table 6, we're sort of estimating that the impact of increasing the fees for not resident parking season tickets, parking season tickets. So we're sort of forecasting that if we just sort of increase based on our fees based on what we charged last year, we will we sort of our revenue, our income will increase according to that percentage. So have we factored in the impact of the pandemic on people's habits in terms of commuting, and whether or not they're going to be more or less likely to want a parking season ticket in future when forecasting this revenue for on this budget line for the coming financial year?
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to answer that one? Or?
I don't have the details, I'm afraid, Chair, to be able to answer that. I don't know if any other officers have that information.
Stephen?
That's the level of detail I don't have, I'm afraid, Chairman. I can take that one away and inquire further.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good idea. You're happy with that, Alex, that you'll get an answer by email?
I am, and I'm just keen to know that sort of the questioning, some of the assumptions underpinning the budget have also been applied to our income on parking. So yeah, I think we've got to be very conservative on that, just in case people's habits do change, because we don't want to be out of pocket mid-financial year.
No, that's a fair comment, and we will get you an email answer. Now, I see 2 people who have asked questions before, so I'm going to jump straight to James Frecknell, because James hasn't asked a question. I will come back to Mark and Mary, but James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so it's 2 very quick ones, if I'm allowed to, on that one, with 2 following paragraphs. So 2.18.4 and 2.18.5 are the paragraphs I'm looking at, please. If I can take the first one, I'm just wondering whether the advice has been sought yet from council about whether housing is going to be deemed to be primarily for yield, or if not, again, I guess it's a sort of time frame question really, when we'll sort of have an answer to that, whether it will be considered primarily for yield. And the second question refers to the £6 million in the budget for the Financial Sustainability Committee. Now, I'm not going into detail with this, but just wondering how likely it is that £6 million will be used for the investments as the infrastructure investments which are being sort of looked at the moment, and if it's not used, would that then go back into the budget itself, please?
Thank you. I think they're probably both operational. So Stephen, do you want to?
Council's opinion will be probably around the end of February, start of March. In terms of the 6 million, it's in a part of the capital programme, if you look in the appendix, which is it's approved. It will be approved by council in due course if council is minded so to approve, but it's not actually committed yet. So in terms of so it's there to be used should we need to use it, but so it's not actually counting in the budget as such yet, but it's approved, and then we'll adjust in accordance with the rules that are set out in Appendix C. As to the likelihood of the things coming forward, I can't really comment at this time because we haven't been through the process of with first of all with leadership team and then with Financial Sustainability Committee to start screening some of the ideas that are coming forward. So it's I can't answer that at the moment. I mean, some of these proposals that are coming forward could result in no income or a cost to the council, in which case they won't proceed. So I think it's too early days yet to be definitive about how much of that could be spent.
Okay, thank you. You happy with that answer, Mark, James?
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, Mark, you want to come back and then me?
Thank you. I've got another couple of questions if you don't mind. It's on page 13, and it's the table at the top. It's reserve contributions, and then the text underneath. I think we can see from the table that over the term of the medium financial plan, there are some reasonably hefty contributions to be made from reserves. I just wanted to make sure from officers, I guess, that obviously we're not going to be compromising our reserves position. In particular, the text below, it talks about Section 1.5 officers' statutory reports on the adequacy of reserves. I wonder if you can remind us to whom that's made. I just can't remember off the top of my head how that's made, or whether we see that or whether it goes to the regulator or not, please.
Yeah, who wants to answer that one?
The report's made by me and it's made to full council. So it's part of the report to full council will be my report on the adequacy of the estimates and the adequacy of reserves. So I'll be included as an appendix to the budget report. In terms of the reserves, there's the 4.6 million going in because we expect the 4.6 million irrecoverable loss on business rates to be paid in a bulk sum in January 2022. So that we then move 2 years worth of that into reserves, and then there's 900,000 of that being withdrawn down again in the next 2 following years. So that's why you've seen some quite large figures on those reserves. Mm-hmm. And in the next financial year, of course, there'll be new homes bonus movements as well. So
a note on page 37 which is the projected balances on reserves table. The balances on the reserves on that don't seem to be materially changing over the life of the medium-term financial plan overall, which is very encouraging. Wondered if you would agree with that,
Stephen?
Yeah. I mean, they are what they are. They're there. We will be reviewing them at the year end.
Yeah.
Have a look at how appropriate they are and perhaps consolidating them into earmarked reserves. So around income loss and that sort of stuff. So. And as well, there is the transformation programme, which has potential for capital as well, some of which will have to be paid for out of reserves in order to trim down the councils well. So at present, yes, we're holding on to the reserves, which I think is important because we don't want to run them down too far.
No, that was my point of my question. And I noticed you mentioned just now about the potential opportunity to consolidate reserves at some point, maybe at the year end. Is that an easy process, and do we have to sort of run that by the external auditors first?
No, it's just our way of saying this is what we're holding these reserves for, because they're awfully specific, very, very specific. Whereas you could hold them in things like this is unspent grant monies, and this is against potential losses. This is for emergencies, that sort of stuff. So it's just it's having less clutter on there and sort of like balances that are for that particular sort of expenditure. It's just to clear it up a bit because it's, as I say, it's very cluttered at the moment.
I see. And just one last point, again, it's on this section in 2.13.3, you talk about obviously the demise of the new homes bonus, but you kind of allude to the fact that it may be replaced by something, maybe, although clearly we're not sort of making any allowance for that now. But have any ideas what form that might take?
Absolutely no idea whatsoever, Councillor. It's in with the fair funding review and many other things. It's gone into the Whitehall machine and nothing's come out yet. I have no idea.
Fine. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask, where is the funding for the old River Lane, the shops, the flats, the offices? Where is that coming from, and why is it not listed in the capital programme?
Do you want to answer that one, Jeff?
Yeah, the business case will in fact be coming to council next month. Basically, it's all being handled by the developer. They are, in essence, funding the project. So we have an entry in the capital programme for the Arts Centre, but in terms of the core site, that's not really an element within our own capital programme.
Does that answer your?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, is that hand up or did you want to come back?
Yeah, it's a hand up if you don't mind. Page 15, para 2.14.3, it just talks about the considerable risk that business rates don't yield the funding level assumed in the budget. Can officers maybe just give us a bit more colour around this and sort of, I guess, assure us that we're not exposed in any way here, or not, or indeed maybe quantify the level of potential exposure?
Thank you, Stephen.
I have quantified the risk earlier in the report. It's 347,000 because the business rate system has what's called the safety net. You can drop your income by a certain percentage, but then it can drop no more. So for us to reach the safety net is a loss of 347,000. As to what's afoot with business rates, we received a letter earlier this week from the government saying, don't bill your business rates before the budget, but not telling us what they're going to do in the budget. And I'm not privy to the Chancellor's secrets, so I'm afraid I just can't tell you what's going on. But there is an old joke among local authority chief finance officers that in the 30 years before they localised business rates, they reformed it 3 times. Since it's been localised, they've reformed it over 100 times. So I simply don't know what's afoot with what they're going to announce at the budget. And as for the long-term future, I'm hearing a lot of noises that the Treasury are warming to the land value tax proposals.
Thank you. So in terms of the level of our exposure, as you quite rightly say, it's in the report. So it's 350 grand, give or take.
Yeah.
Worst case. Okay, thank you. One further question, if you don't mind. On page 16, there are 2 paras where you were kind of inviting us to kind of think about things in terms like council tax discounts and local council tax support scheme, in terms of maybe thinking about changing those around. At what point do you think that we might think about that, or is that now or for another time?
You have to approve the local council tax scheme every year, so that usually comes to council around November. And because of any changes to that, you will have to do a full 12-week consultation. So you should be thinking about it basically around about the time, about April, about March, April. So because it is an annual review of that, and the discounts as well on council tax are reviewed annually. So around about March, April is the time, if you were thinking of it, to start having those discussions and thinking about how the scheme's designed going forward. It's in no way suggesting that you ought to do this. It's just options that are there for you. Obviously, at 11% of the council tax take overall, it's not going to advantage us massively, but it will help the county council. It will help the police and crime commissioner as well. So it's an option for members to think about and to look at, but nothing more than that, just raising members' attention to the fact that it is there as an option.
So I do recall, clearly I do remember that these things that come to council in November. So is that something that we should remind officers about, or will we get a prompt, do you think?
I think we rely on Sue Karen to prompt.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any other blue hands up, so let me know. In which case, I've got a very quick question. On page 10, if we look at the medium-term financial plan, it seems that no, in fact, ignore what I'm saying. I'm looking at things back to front. So
I mean, it's going down 6%, councillor. Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That's the effect of one of the savings proposals, which was the chief executive is going to look at the senior management structure, and that was a suggestion of saving from him that he could deliver as part of looking at that senior management structure.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was looking at it the wrong way round, so it's a saving rather than an increase, which is fantastic. Unless there are no other questions, which I cannot see, in which case, if I can take members to page so it's page 4, isn't it? And there are 2 recommendations, A and B, and A has 1 to 5. Are we able to take these on block? If I can ask someone from Democratic Services.
The recommendations, I think, are just to scrutinise and make any recommendations to the executive. So I'm not sure they necessarily would need a vote, Chairman, just for officers to know and for members to raise anything they want specifically raised to the executive.
All right. Okay. So it's just a case of in which case, is everybody happy to note those recommendations? Can I have a quick show of hands just to show that everyone seems happy? Yeah, looking at that, I think everyone is happy. In which case, I believe that is it, I think, isn't it?
Just to check, there's no urgent business that you're aware of, Chair, but I'm not aware of any.
Sorry, no, I'm not aware of any urgent business, and I can't see anyone flagging anything up to me. So, in which case, thank you all very much for this evening's meeting, and you've got a few minutes before the